Hello, I'm Elismi from Alpha Advisors. Nice to meet you. So right now at Alpha, we have a lot of people who really want to go for an MBA or study abroad. Regarding job changes, people are breaking through at companies like Mitsui and Co. There's also boss career and new opportunities. Job hunting has started for third-year university and first-year master's students, and even second-year and first-year students are coming to Alpha. Data shows those who start early tend to do better. Job hunting has already begun, and it's job hunting time for those third-year university students, and of course those in their first year of master's studies. So of course that's the case. Nowadays, even second and first year university students are coming to Alpha in droves, and I think they have a very good attitude. Well, it's statistically true that people who start early tend to do better. So those who start early know what to do early. It's only natural that they have a good career. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of second year and first year students coming in, and things are starting to get a bit busy on that front. So we have a lot of free consultations available right now. I apologize, but we're prioritizing those who are really serious about wanting to succeed at Alpha for these free consultations. Alpha videos cover various topics. Consult Alpha for advice on MBA, studying abroad, or career change. Common concerns include dissatisfaction with education. If you're thinking about going for an MBA, studying abroad, or making a career change, I encourage you to reach out to Alpha once you've made that decision. So today, we receive consultations from various people every single day. And a common concern that comes up quite often is dissatisfaction with their educational background. A lot of people have quite a bit of dissatisfaction with their own educational background and are looking for ways to overcome that. So we get a lot of inquiries about what they should do to address these feelings. In such cases, you should think like this: how to succeed and become wealthy. People share common traits and fall into thinking traps. Don't lament your educational background. If you're unhappy with education, here's how to become wealthy. Educational background tends to stick with you. Similarly, there is a trap of thinking that people fall into, so I would like to talk about that as well. So, the title is this: Don't complain about your academic background, and you may be dissatisfied with your academic background. I want to talk about how you can become financially successful and strategies. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any time. So, educational background is something that tends to stick with you for a long time. When you're a student, you might not be very aware of it. Well, there are people who think I shouldn't have gone to that university, or I should have taken a gap year. Many aim for the University of Tokyo after setback, facing career barriers from lower ranked schools. Recently, people from specialized sectors seek guidance from Alpha. Some people aim to enter the University of Tokyo's graduate school. They might have attended March or lower ranked universities. They are struggling to overcome obstacles. Recently, many from the self-defense forces, medical or caregiving sectors with specialized jobs seek guidance from Alpha. They often express concerns like, I didn't attend a prestigious university. In career consultations, they often hear discouraging feedback like, with your background, consulting is probably out of reach. There are quite a lot of people from the self-defense forces. Then there's the medical field and stuff like that. And well, people who work in nursing care and things like that. A lot of people who work in highly specialized jobs like that come to Alpha. So I often hear from people who say, I didn't go to a prestigious university, and that's a very common concern. On the other hand, even if their education isn't necessarily low, they still feel like they're looked down upon. When they go for career consultations, they often hear things like, with your background, consulting is probably out of reach for you, and feedback can be really discouraging. It's frustrating to hear those comments, and it feels like unnecessary interference. A lot of people feel this educational barrier. I think many want to overcome it. They want to improve their education. I believe it's important to address this issue. I hear a lot of comments like that, and it feels like unnecessary interference. Many people feel this so-called educational barrier, and I think a lot of them want to overcome it. They want to improve their educational background, and I believe that it's important to address this issue. Well, a lot of people really feel this so-called educational barrier, and I think many want to overcome it. Educational background is something that people want to improve upon, so I'm all for enhancing one's academic credentials. Of course, I strongly support the idea of going for an MBA or studying at a foreign graduate school to upgrade your educational background. It's almost like a last chance life to make that switch. However, there are some people who get too caught up in that idea, and I think that's not a good thing. So this is really a tricky point. It's difficult to put it into words, though. So the question is whether having an educational background really means you can become wealthy, right? People with good degrees. Are they really becoming wealthy? I mean, for people earning around 10 million or 20 million yen a year, it's probably true that many of them have high academic credentials, but I'm not sure about the specifics. I haven't really looked at recent statistics, and I wouldn't know where to find them. If you have that information, please let me know. For example, I have some doubts about whether those who are really successful actually have high academic credentials. In fact, I have a hypothesis that those who aren't highly educated might actually hold more wealth. There are quite a few people like that, you know. And then, as I said the other day, there are people who failed in their job hunting, but then started their own businesses, found success, and sold them for billions, living a lavish lifestyle. Interestingly, many of these successful individuals tend to be those who struggled with university entrance exams or job hunting. So this is one thing I really hope someone will look into. Maybe it's more like I'm saying, you should do it. But if there's anyone out there researching this, I would love for them to gather some data. I really think there's something to this observation, because there seem to be quite a few people like that. What I want to say is that the higher your educational background, the more your brain tends to work towards further enhancing it. Your brain works towards enhancing your educational background. For example, there are people who are already at the University of Tokyo and have also gone to Columbia University's graduate school, but still want to go for an MBA at Harvard. They might say they want to get into McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, and then later aim for a position in a fund. It seems like those companies are also seen as a type of educational background. There are people who think like that. There are a lot of highly educated people, but the truth is, in the end, it's still just being a salaryman all along. It's like for some people, just stepping up as a senior salaryman is seen as a victory. They really believe in that and live by that value system. McKinsey rather than Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, or BCG, yes, Mitsubishi Corporation, has a higher standard deviation than Marubeni. There are a lot of people who think like that, and many of them have high academic credentials. But those people, they probably haven't become that wealthy. I think they might be earning around 10 million yen or so. So are they really making hundreds of millions? I haven't really seen it much. And more importantly, it's like this, a curve. Well, there's a curve. It's already happening. Well, if there's something like an income curve, right? So in your 20s, like in their 30s and 40s, it seems like the level is high at first, but then it drops off. What do you mean by highly educated? The reason for that is that they start to experience this downward trend. This kind of downward trend for salarymen begins here, where they might have initially been at a great company like McKinsey, but then they end up hopping around and their positions and the level of the companies they're with decline. And in the end, you don't even know what they're doing anymore. You know those kinds of people, right? Actually, this curve I'm talking about is what I call the downward curve, and I'm just saying that now. There are a lot of highly educated people in this situation, and the reason for that is, well, it's because they keep working as salarymen. There are a lot of highly educated people. The reason for that is, yeah, it's because they've been salarymen all along. So, really, is it that much? So basically, it's about people who aren't really satisfied with their level of education. And what about people who are salarymen? Furthermore, at the very bottom, there's a similar curve. Well, it goes like this. You end up on this kind of curve. This is what you might call, well, what can I say? Well, for those with lower to mid-level education. And then they end up changing jobs unnecessarily, right? And their companies just keep getting worse. I see. So even if you keep being a salaryman from now on, this kind of curve, well, it's a situation where performance is declining and salaries are going down. So generally speaking, the fate of salarymen tends to follow this kind of curve. So what I'm saying is, those highly educated people or those who admire higher education. What about the people with lower to mid-level education? So people try to get into good companies or good schools, and if you can get into a good school, you can get into a good company. Of course, the possibility increases, but even if your annual income goes from, say, 6 million to 10 million, in the end, it's still just 10 million. So about that, there's one thing to say about the upsides, right? But being a salaryman and making 10 million means by your 50s or 60s, you could get kicked out of that company. Then for the next 20 years, you must find a living. I think more people will face this. So in the end, this is the salaryman curve. So after that, you have to find a way to live for the next 20 years. I really think that the number of people who get stuck in this situation is going to increase a lot from now on. So in the end, this is the salaryman curve. That's how it is from our perspective. Well, even if there's a difference in salary, right? It's pretty much the same thing. That company, that university. Well, the salary curves of someone with a standard deviation of 72 and someone with a standard deviation of 50 may be quite different. But it's like, isn't it around 6 million to 12 million? It's not that big of a difference, really. Around 6 million. So our message is that we don't want you to be satisfied with just making around 10 million in life. So what about those highly educated people? They just can't let go of their position, They just can't go. Companies often do this too. I've supported hundreds of people in job hunting, and I've helped a lot of them get into places like McKinsey, BCG, Goldman Sachs, and so on. Then there's Mitsubishi Corporation. And for now, they just go into trading companies. In the end, they want to do management. There are a lot of energetic folks who say they want to go into strategy consulting and then start their own business. I've probably seen thousands of people like that. But those who actually say that and then go on to start a business are almost zero. In the end, they want to do management. There are a lot of energetic folks who say they want to go into strategy consulting and then start their own business. I've probably seen thousands of people say that, but those who actually go on to start a business are almost zero. Almost zero. And why does this happen? It's because highly educated people can't let go of the world of pianchaiji, right? In short, they can't step outside the pianchaiji world and run a takoyaki shop. That's what it comes down to. You can't step into a world that has nothing to do with pianchaiji, like running a nationwide chain of takoyaki shops, or even a ramen shop like Tenkaipen. That's where highly educated people struggle. The biggest weak point of highly educated people is that this is the only point where those who are dissatisfied with their education can actually win. This is the one point where they should win. Hey, I feel like a lot of people who fail their university entrance exams or job hunting end up becoming billionaires. Why do you think that is? It's probably because they can run a takoyaki shop. They feel like they have nothing to lose, in a way. It's like, I might as well give it a shot. And there's a kind of healthy acceptance of their educational background. They step outside of that framework. So in that case, there's a kind of healthy acceptance in a good way, letting go of that educational background and thinking, well, I might as well give it a try. It's about stepping outside the box. You can step outside of that. And that's the only path to becoming really wealthy. What I want you to understand, and today's theme. Some of you went to MBA programs from consulting or investment firms, right? Few start their own businesses after. They often stay in those firms and get executive roles. They earn well, but maybe laid off, and salaries drop in their 40s. There really aren't that many people who start their own businesses. Those kinds of people, they have a lot of pride. So they continue working in investment banks or consulting firms, and then they get hired at some company in an executive position, earning a decent salary. But then at some point, they get laid off. And from around their 40s, their salary starts to drop significantly. That's what's happening. So what can we do to avoid that? What should highly educated people do? At some point, you have to step away from the academic credential game. To put it more bluntly, what people who are dissatisfied with their educational background should do is to escape the academic credential game as quickly as possible. However, if you just escape from the academic game without a plan, it can lead to a situation where you really can't make a living. So the key point here, and I always say this, is going to overseas graduate schools or MBA programs. Right, let's write down global, shall we? Global. So, like management, finance, and technology. Learn about graduate school in the body. Having a degree. This will at least provide you with, even if something happens, like if you start a business and fail, having that degree can serve as a safety net, allowing you to get hired by some company with a salary of over 10 million yen. With a safety net and real skills, you have a better chance of wealth outside traditional education. Many seek MBAs to enter consulting or foreign firms, but it's tough against top graduates. Competing in unwinnable games is a mistake. Many people with less impressive educational backgrounds often come to me wanting to go to an MBA program. There are plenty of opportunities to do that. However, they want to go into consulting or work for a foreign company. They won't win in that game. They are trying to enter a game they can't win. That's a mistake. They compete with graduates who come from top schools like Tokyo, Waseda, Keio, or overseas, working in consulting or banking. So if they think they can join BCG and win, that's unlikely. Some people try to enter unwinnable games, which is a mistake. They compete against those from top schools like the University of Tokyo, Waseda, or overseas universities who enter consulting or investment banking. Even with such backgrounds, winning at BCG is unlikely. By university age, their intellectual approach is evident. Many haven't read enough books, affecting the quality and depth of their writing. So, when we consider whether these individuals with such educational backgrounds can actually win at a place like BCG, the answer is probably no. Yeah, and you can really see how people use their intellect and approach problems, especially by the time they reach their kids or university age. One noticeable thing is that many of them haven't read enough books. From what I've observed, even when they write a piece of text, the quality and depth of their writing are completely different. And you might not really understand that yourself, but in the end, it doesn't really matter, right? Well, the point is that there is probably a difference in Japanese language ability between those who take the entrance exam for Tokyo University, those who get accepted, and those who get accepted into a March university. The difference in Japanese language ability is not very visible, but it actually makes a big difference in everyday life and business. So that's where it is. It's very difficult to catch up after becoming an adult, and I don't think you should try. If that's the case, don't aim to win there. It's fine to join BCG. You can join BCG. Be clear about your intentions. Accept you won't be the best, and be okay with being told you can't do it for 2 or 3 years just to have that name on your resume. If you want to be a manager, having BCG on your resume might boost job opportunities. That's fine. It's about branding your resume, and being clear is okay. But getting into consulting or investment banking after an MBA doesn't mean you can win. It's okay to join, but plan to leave after 2 or 3 years and move on. If I write about it some, it might lead to more job requests. Writing for the sake of branding your resume is fine. But because you got into consulting or investment banking after getting an MBA doesn't guarantee success. So it's fine to join, but you should plan to leave after a few years, step away from the education game. Just because you got into consulting or investment banking after getting an MBA doesn't mean you can win in a game where you can't compete. So it's fine to get in, but you should plan to leave after 2 or 3 years and step away from that ranking system. That's my top recommendation for getting out of the education game. Getting out of the game. It's my top and most important recommendation, I would say. It's definitely the best choice. In the end, I always say this, but the people from overseas universities, they get taken care of during events like Boss Career. I mentioned that there are only 3 types of parents who can send their kids to study abroad, starting from high school or university. One is doctors, and the second type is small and medium-sized business owners. And the third is people working in finance, especially in foreign financial institutions. So there are really only these 3 types. If you can get into one of those, you can win. And even if you think about becoming a doctor now, it's probably going to be really tough, right? So there are only 2 paths left. One is small business owner. One path is in finance, which includes investments and foreign financial institutions. You can go into hedge funds, asset management, or even invest on your own. Being a personal investor is also an option. So there are really only these 2 paths left. To put it more bluntly, you have to step outside the realm of being a salaryman. The only way to earn a lot of money as a salaryman is often through foreign financial institutions, which is why I recommend it. This is a special kind of salaryman. So moving into the management side of small and medium-sized enterprises means stepping away from being a salaryman. It means quitting your job as a salaryman. In reality, if you work in foreign finance, if you don't perform well, you can get fired. And while those who excel can earn a lot of money, it's somewhat different from the traditional Japanese salaryman experience. Therefore, these two groups essentially refer to managers of small and medium-sized enterprises and foreign financial institutions. People who step outside the traditional salaryman world and the realm of prestigious educational backgrounds, like those who think, wow, Goldman Sachs is amazing, or Mitsubishi Corporation is impressive, are the ones who start to see real earning potential. I really want people to pursue this path, and they should, but only those who are dissatisfied with their educational background can go here. It's a bit of a strange thing to say, but the reason is that even if you think about climbing the ranks at McKinsey, there are already a lot of impressive people there. And the same goes for investment banking. So, for example, I mentioned before that in foreign finance, there are areas like asset management or wealth management, where you could be doing business with wealthy clients in Singapore. I'm discussing areas like asset management, hedge funds, and wealth management. For small and medium-sized business owners, there are two main paths. One involves succession issues becoming more prominent. You can invest money, gain significant upside, and participate in management. If successful, you could end up with millions or even hundreds of billions in assets. It's about high-stakes investment or starting your own business. So, there are probably two main paths. One is related to succession issues, which are going to become more prominent in the future. In those situations, you can invest some money and potentially gain a significant upside, while also being in a position to participate in the management. In other words, if that were to happen, it would be more than just billions. It would be a question of whether to do something with a degree of debt that would give you assets worth billions or tens of billions of yen, or whether to become a manager yourself, to start up a small or medium-sized business. So, if you can get into this field. So, if you can get into that area, having an MBA or good education is crucial. It helps in raising funds and attracting people. Graduating from MIT or Columbia changes responses. Some overvalue an MBA. An MBA from a known school puts you in top candidates. Don't fixate on education, timing, and speed matter. Well, when you say you graduated from Cho University compared to someone who graduated from MIT or Columbia, the way people respond to you is indeed completely different. That's a fact. But some people get too hung up on that, thinking that just having an MBA is enough. It's a tricky thing to say, though. If you graduate from a recognized MBA program, having an MBA can make you a top candidate. Don't focus too much on education. Timing and speed matter. This year, for example, there are many tests like GRE, GMAT, TOEFL. Alpha students prepare and apply in a month or two, getting accepted quickly. Many feel they didn't need the test. They're all getting accepted, and this trend will continue. It's about seizing opportunities. The timing, right now, perhaps, for example, this year, that's GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IL2. There are many opportunities, and students at Alpha are preparing in just a month or two, getting accepted quickly. As Izumi-san mentioned, many feel they didn't need to take tests. They're all getting accepted, and this trend will continue. It's about seizing opportunities. Don't focus too much on educational background or school name. Getting into an MBA program in the US, Europe, or Asia is a status symbol and safety net. Your educational background is sufficient. Leverage it. Now step out of education and into the real world, whether it's top tier or Warren Buffett's path. These are the paths I see, and I encourage people to pursue them. Even highly educated people might struggle to understand this. It's really important not to get too hung up on education background or the name of the school. If you can get into an MBA program in the US, Europe, or Asia, that's already a huge status symbol and a safety net. At that point, your educational background is more than enough, and you can definitely leverage that. Now, it's time to step out of the educational game and move into the real game, whether it's the top tier game or the Warren Buffett game. Those are really the only two paths left, and I really want people to pursue those. Even when I tell highly educated people this, think they might still struggle to understand. I think there are a lot of highly educated people watching Alpha, but they probably can't quit their jobs. You know, you can't escape the educational background game. Yeah, I really think that's true. For example, a wife might say, please don't quit Mitsubishi FG. And if you're someone who got into a decent company like Mitsubishi Corporation, you might wonder if there's a better brand out there to move to after leaving. So even though a lot of really talented people are leaving Mitsubishi Corporation, it's often the case that they leave to pursue an MBA or something similar. But for the average person, they feel like they're losing out on the Mitsubishi Corporation brand. Even if they understand what I'm saying, it's still tough for them to step out of that high-achieving educational game or the ranking game and put themselves out there. So even though a lot of really talented people are leaving Mitsubishi Corporation, it's often the case that they leave to pursue an MBA or something similar. Yeah, well, Regular folks are already feeling overshadowed by the Mitsubishi Corporation brand. Even if they understand what I'm saying, it's really tough for them to step out of that high-achieving educational game or the ranking game and put themselves out there. Well, I'm sorry, but it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. Yeah, right now, companies like trading firms are starting to decline a bit. So a lot of people from various trading companies are looking to switch jobs or want to go for an MBA. I think with these external factors, they might get pushed out a bit. But honestly, I see it as a good shuffle. It's almost impossible for highly educated people to step out of the educational game on their own. There aren't many brave enough to do that. Yeah, so I just feel a bit sorry for highly educated people. That's about it. And among them, I really feel a sense of future in that guy who graduated from the University of Tokyo and is now making takoyaki while wearing a headband. Really think he's someone who will earn a lot. And the ones who can actually step into that world without much resistance are usually the ones who are dissatisfied with their own academic background. That's what I meant when I said not to lament your academic credentials. Those who can enter that world often dislike their academic background. That's why I advise against lamenting your credentials. People ask about Tokyo University researchers, what are they doing or where are they applying? They compare themselves to others, and I advise them to stop. So I started lamenting my academic background, and that's why I wrote the first thing. People often think about their academic background. In free consultations or coaching, they bring this up, asking about others from the University of Tokyo Research Institute. They're focused on others, constantly comparing themselves, which I advise against. As working adults, playing the academic game affects mental health. Comparing is foolish. They should aim to be unique. Achieving this brings new opportunities. Strengthening social credibility is key, and an MBA helps, like a business driver's license. They should learn about an MBA and aim for English proficiency. Well, you're already a working adult. So if you play games with your academic background as a working adult, you'll be mentally exhausted and will be constantly comparing yourself to others. There's nothing more stupid than trying to get a life. You should strive to be an irreplaceable presence, and once you achieve that, new opportunities will surely come your way. You need to boost your social credibility, and an MBA can help. An MBA is like a business license, so aim to be good at English, understand finance and technology, learn well, and escape academics. Your academic background doesn't matter. I'm helping you leave academics and earn millions. There's a world where you need to know about finance and technology, so it's important to study properly and break free from that academic game. The reason I support people going for an MBA or various overseas graduate schools is not because I want you to win at the academic game. In fact, it's the opposite. I want you to understand that it doesn't matter what kind of academic background you have. I'm doing alpha to break out of the academic game and earn millions. Do you want me to understand that properly? So your educational background, what about while you're still playing the game? You're just a slave to the company, a slave to capital, and you're only working for the shareholders, just an ordinary salaryman. I'm sorry, but I think it's a waste to end your life like that. That's why I say you should go for an MBA or attend an overseas graduate school. It's about getting out of the academic game as soon as possible. But many people say, I want to go to Columbia, I want to go to Boston Consulting Group. And when I ask them, what happens after that? They just don't have an answer. That's why it's no good. That's why you'll lose. Yeah, that's really important. I might not express everything perfectly as I'm thinking through it all. So there might be some parts where I'm not clear, but I hope you can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. I tend to repeat these points a lot. So it's necessary to build your skills. After you establish a certain level of social credibility and skills, you should move as quickly as possible to break out of the academic game. Get out of the academic game, like I mentioned earlier. You can make money as a small business owner or in the world of finance, like in foreign investment banking. Hey, earn a ton of money. And once you've made a fortune, if you want to, you can contribute to society. Your own stomach. I guess there are people who are hungry, but still give rice balls to others. I always tell my individual coaching students, first, fill your own stomach. Each one of you should become very wealthy. I mean, can you really get rich working as a salaryman, earning just a few million yen a year? I always thought it was ridiculous to work for some crappy company. I thought about how I received tens of millions. What are you working for? Working for yourself is what life is all about, and for your family too. For example, just the other day, one of my individual coaching students said they want to go for an MBA. They explained that they want to become a business owner in a small company, make money, and provide a good life for their family, and a quality education for their kids. And I thought, that's exactly right. That's what it's all about. So I told them to work hard for that. Now, in MBA essays, people often write about wanting to help others or make a difference, and that's fine. But honestly, their true feelings are what really matter. So work hard for that. Well, in essays, like for an MBA application, people often write about wanting to help others and all that, and that's fine. But honestly, their true feelings are what really matter. It's okay to have those thoughts. Anyway, make sure you and your family enjoy that money to the fullest. That's what matters. First of all, that's the priority, right? And to get there, you need to break out of the academic game quickly. To do that, you should go for an MBA or attend an overseas graduate school as soon as possible to gain a high social status. I'm just saying you need to build up your skills, right? For example, after getting your MBA, it's totally fine to go to Boston Consulting Group or Morgan Stanley to pay off your debts. That's completely okay. But in the end, that's almost the same as just going for an MBA. In other words, it's about building some social credibility and a bit of skill. Once that's done, you can start taking on challenges. Got it? Think differently, it's a chance. Don't worry about academic. You might lack skills now like English or tech. Build basics for credibility. Even if you fail, there's a safety net with a 10 million yen income. Take on challenges, be happy. The saddest want more education for top companies. It's a huge opportunity. You don't have to be so fixated on the academic game. Sure, you might not have much skill right now, like your English might not be that great. You might not know much about management or technology, and you might not have a master's degree from an overseas university. But if that's the case, at least try to get those basics somewhere. That way you can build some social credibility. Plus, if you have a solid foundation, even if you try something and fail, you'll have a safety net with an annual income of 10 million yen. I'm always saying take on challenges with what you have. So I think people who are lamenting their academic background don't need to. In fact, they should be happy about it. The saddest are those who lack an academic background and still want more education. They want to join a good company, like they want to join the University of Tokyo or its graduate school, or they want to join Mitsubishi Corporation. They want to join McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. They don't really think beyond that. These are the people who end up losing the most because they can't win in that environment. They get low evaluations there, and then they're just tossed aside, not picked up, and they end up on a steep decline. I want to get into McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. I haven't really thought about what comes after that. People like this end up losing the most. I'll make that very clear. The reason is that you can't win there anymore. You get a low evaluation there, you get thrown out, you're not picked up anywhere, and you're on a really low curve from here. I know a lot of people who fall steeply. I don't want you to end up like that, so I'm giving you this warning. Those kinds of people end up losing the most. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope that got across, but it might not have. Anyway, this is how I see things. Thank you. I wonder if I got that across. Maybe I didn't, but this is how I think about it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. I graduated from a local public university, and I'm working at a machinery manufacturer, and I'm confident in my English skills. Yes, I also do stock investments on my own, so I feel that going to a foreign company is very reasonable for me, not so much for the money, but to build my own profile. So, with such impure motives and coming from a local low-ranking university, is there a possibility of getting a job at a foreign company? Yes, I think it's great that you're into investing. That's really good. Pursuing an MBA, overseas MBA, or a Master of Finance can be tricky. A Master of Finance can lead to investment banking or hedge funds. There's a high demand for those understanding the Japanese market, especially in overseas hedge funds. Transitioning from a local university in machinery manufacturing to finance or foreign investment banking is tough. However, attending an overseas graduate school, like an MBA or Master of Finance, could open opportunities. There are really a lot of different hedge funds, and especially overseas hedge funds have a significant demand for people who can understand the Japanese market. Just the other day, I released a video about the types of questions you might get asked at Goldman Sachs. You really can't answer certain questions unless you're into investing. So for people who are into investing, it's almost impossible to transition from a local university and a machinery manufacturer into finance, foreign finance, or hedge funds. But if you first go to an overseas graduate school, like an MBA or a Master of Finance, then you'll have that academic background. From there, moving into foreign finance is definitely a possibility. I think it's very feasible. So once you learn from that, you'll have that academic background. And from there, moving into foreign finance is definitely an option. I think there's plenty of potential for that. So, well, it's just a vague idea. I wonder if I was able to say what I've always been thinking. I hope I was able to convey that well. Honestly, I really want to organize this into a nice chart, but I just don't have the time, and the days keep slipping by. So for now, I thought I'd just share it on YouTube. But if you really want to become wealthy, you need to quit being a salaryman. That's the key. Sorry. To quit being a salaryman, you need to study hard for an MBA, an overseas graduate school, or a Master of Finance. Build your social credibility and develop your skills. And then you can leave the salaryman life behind. Once you do that, a whole new world will open up for you. I keep saying this, but there's really no need to lament about your academic background. And there's no need to complain about your academic background. I hope you go after those big opportunities. To add to your question, what you mentioned today applies not just in Japan, but also when working overseas, right? That's a great question. Yes, it does. In the US, there's this saying, entrepreneur is king, as Mikitani-san says. This shows they value entrepreneurs because it's the most challenging path. In San Francisco, I met many Google employees. When I praised Google, they said, not really. I haven't started my own business yet. Do you get what I mean? So there's this saying that being an entrepreneur is really the most impressive thing, and that's their value system. The reason for that is that it's the most challenging path. When I was in San Francisco, I met quite a few people working at Google. When I say, wow, Google is amazing, they always respond with, not at all. I still haven't started my own business yet. Do you get what I mean? I don't have the confidence to start a business yet. That's why they're at Google. So in their eyes, they're seen as second tier, right? The whole high academic background thing. In other words, salarymen are seen as second tier, and the most impressive ones are entrepreneurs, right? That's why people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, among many other business leaders, are so highly regarded. Entrepreneurs or business leaders are really admired and respected in that world for those reasons. However, as I mentioned earlier, not everyone in America who is considered an entrepreneur has an MBA or anything like that. When we talk about being highly educated, it's not necessarily the case. Some MBA holders succeed in business, but there are also those who haven't in America. Consider if this applies to Japan. Highly educated people often take more risks. In America, MBA holders often take risks in entrepreneurship, especially in startups. In Japan, highly educated people are more risk averse. Fundamentally, the thinking is similar. I think that people with MBAs in America tend to take more risks and are more willing to challenge themselves in entrepreneurship, especially in small businesses and startups. In that sense, highly educated people in Japan seem to have a stronger tendency to be risk averse or avoid risks. I believe that's true. However, fundamentally, the way of thinking is pretty similar. Entrepreneurs are respected because they create wealth and generate new jobs, which is a big reason why they are admired. So I'll say it again, it's really important to recognize that. I think that's true to some extent, but fundamentally, the way of thinking is pretty much the same. Entrepreneurs are greatly respected in our society, and the reason they are significantly respected is because they make money and create new jobs and opportunities. Yes, so anyway, I've said this many times, but build your skills and social credibility, then pursue an MBA or graduate school abroad to compete globally. Quickly transition from education to becoming a business owner or entering foreign finance. Aim for the big leagues, not just millions. If you're watching this, think about making $1 billion. Once you do, clarity will follow. Harvard doesn't guarantee billions. You might think, if I go to Harvard, I can't leave McKinsey, or I want a big company, which can shape your mindset. Why would a Harvard grad go to Morgan Stanley? If I were you, I'd borrow money and seek funding. Head that way to see the bigger picture. Aim for big leagues, not just 10 or 20 million. Watching this, think billion. Once you do, clarity comes. It's not automatic, even with Harvard. You might think Harvard means McKinsey, or I want a big company, shaping your mindset. Why would a Harvard grad go to Morgan Stanley? If I went to Harvard, I'd borrow heavily, seek funding, maybe 2 or 3 billion, to start a startup and risk everything. You start to see what you need to do, and you realize that going to Harvard doesn't mean you'll become a billionaire. You might even think, if I go to Harvard, I might stay at McKinsey, and that mindset forms. You wonder why someone who graduated from Harvard would go to Morgan Stanley. If I went to Harvard, say, I would borrow heavily for funding. I might borrow 2 or 3 billion to start a startup and go all out, even if it means burning out. To learn management, I might even let my business go bankrupt to learn from it, and then restart small with my money. But instead, you see that many highly educated MBA graduates end up drifting in banks or consulting. Many are stuck in low-paying cycles. Take big financial risks for a startup. I might let my business fail to learn, then restart small. Many educated people end up in banks or consulting, drifting in low-paying cycles. To learn about management, I really think you should go through something like bankruptcy to learn those lessons and then start small with your own money. I genuinely believe that's what you should do. But instead, you see a lot of highly educated people, like those who go to MBA programs, just end up in investment banks or consulting firms and kind of drift along. There are so many people who aren't making much money, but are stuck in that cycle. Absolutely. So, well, this is really one of those kind of things. I think this is pretty common. It's definitely relatable. So I really hope you can use various examples as references to find your own path and ultimately earn significant profits. Thank you very much for that. And just to reiterate, whether it's an MBA, studying abroad, or changing jobs, it's really important. From people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, since I receive a lot of free consultations and inquiries, if you're someone who wants to consult, you can always log into the Alpha website. There's a free consultation chat available, so please feel free to reach out through that. If you're just looking to have a brief chat, I recommend watching some of the Alpha videos first to get a better understanding before you contact us. For those who are thinking, I want to take a shot at MIT in November or December, there are quite a few people like that, so please do reach out as soon as possible. There's still time. All right, I've talked for a while, but I'm glad I could express what I wanted to say. That's how I feel. So I look forward to your continued support. Thank you. For those who want to take a shot at MIT in November or December, there are quite a few people like that, so please reach out as soon as possible. There's still time. All right. So with that said, I ended up talking for quite a while, but I'm glad I could express what I wanted to say. At least that's how I feel. Thank you for your continued support.